Hey, Garth,
What's up, man?
how are you doing? Okay, so we're both being punished together.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, mine's all about Stetson Bennett because I'm obsessed with him. Um, yours is, do you want me to go first or do you want you to go first?
You could go first.
All right, so here's some stuff about Stetson Bennett and why Stetson Bennett is better at life than me. Um, okay, he won 2 national championships. I've won zero. Those are two reasons right there. I mean, to be fair, it's also a reason not just why Stetson Bennett, but why anybody on that team, including random coaching staff members, are better at life than I am.
You're both undefeated. At least you could say that. You're
Yeah, I
technically
am
3
undefeated
and 0.
in national championships. So there is that. Comments. He's being he's being drafted. Well, technically, Stetson Bennett's a little younger than me, which I do want to talk about a little. It made me feel really, really horrible, really shitty when people were talking about how old Stetson Bennett is. It's like he's also like 6 or 7 months younger than I am, so it doesn't make me
Yeah,
feel.
it's a really weird thing where we're making fun of him for being old and in college football, but at the same time, he's right around the same age as us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the difference is I'm not still in college. Okay, so he's won 2 national championships. I've won zero. Um, whenever I doubted him, he's proven me wrong 100% of the time. While I've doubted him, I've talked about Stetson Bennett. He doesn't know I exist. So there is that.
And at one point in time, a lot of Georgia fans also doubted him, mind you.
That's true. That's true. I don't know who's been doubted more than Stetson Bennett. Not only has he been doubted, I mean, he had to go to junior college.
Yeah, fun fact actually, I sat next to two Georgia fans at a UGA UF football game, not this past season, but the one before. And they actually were both saying that we need to bench this guy for somebody else because we're not going to win anything as long as Bennett's the quarterback. And, look how that turned out.
Yeah, you see, some more people, Stetson Bennett is better at life than. Um, yeah, so all of that, obviously. He stayed in college for 6 years. When I left after 4. So I'm just a sucker. He knows to stay. Maybe if I had stayed like a fifth year, I would have also won a national championship.
Hey, you could always return. You've got 4 years of eligibility left.
Yeah,
You
technically
might be
that's
the next great Georgia quarterback.
yeah, maybe I could. That would be but the thing is, imagine how much people would make fun of me.
Yeah.
It would be too much. Nick's fifth year was NBC year. I mean, I guess you could say that. I guess you could say that was like my fifth year of college, in a sense. Um, I mean, for him, it was 6 years, which is bananas. Not only is he better at life than me because he had 6 years, he was in college for 6 years, but also because he started in 2017. So when I was a junior, he was a freshman. So he started like a year later anyway. Um, oh, by the way, I do want to say thank you for saying happy birthday. Yesterday was my birthday. I'm 26, so I'm too old for Leonardo DiCaprio now. Um,
Not too old for the NFL draft, though.
no, I am not. So I can still try out. Whatever. I've never had a drunk interview before.
That's true. Or been in the news headlines for some kind of public intoxication.
Correct. So no matter what happens, if I drink alcohol, no matter what I do, if I were to get drunk or use drugs or something like that, nobody would know about it. If he does it, everybody knows. So I think this is a little and I've never been in a position, and to be fair, most people never have been in a position where it's appropriate to be on television drunk. Stetson Bennett is one of the few people who's ever existed where it's appropriate to be on TV drunk and nobody says to you, I think you have a problem.
The best part is the whole thing that there's some players on the roster that can't even legally drink, and then there's Stetson Bennett, who's 5 years over the legal age.
I wonder what percentage of the. I wonder how many. What percentage of the players can't legally drink?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. I mean, Georgia's got a lot of young talent, but also a lot of 3 and 4 year players. So it'd like 50-50 split or somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Well. So I mean, I'm sure. Hold on a second. All right. So here's my fifth reason Stetson Bennett is better at life than me, and it actually is very similar to the last one. If I get arrested for public intoxication, it doesn't make the news. That's just a fact. If I were to get arrested for public intoxication, it's not even a story. Like local newspapers wouldn't even write about it.
Just need
Not
to move
only
to
that,
Florida.
not only that, I could drive drunk, which I would never do, but I could do that, and that's still less of a story than Stetson Bennett, being publicly intoxicated.
Just need to move to Florida. Crazy Florida men are pretty popular with the news.
That's true. That's true. But even if I did move to Florida and become a crazy Florida man, I would just be Florida man. I wouldn't like my name wouldn't even matter.
That's true.
Stetson Bennett is not Georgia man. All right, so those are my 5 reasons. I'm technically you could even say 6 because the 2 national championships count as 2. All right, your turn.
Yes, it is my turn. It looks like I can't throw his comment out there, Nick, because obviously I'm the guest on your show tonight. Not my usual pucking around, but our good buddy
Stetson Bennett took
Noah.
a dump in Garth and Nick's mouth before the show. Weird thing to think about, but okay.
At least he got me warmed up to read a list of reasons that I am by no means excited to be reading. Real quickly, I guess I'll preface this in case there's viewers who either don't know myself or Noah that well. Basically, we're both huge, average college football fans. I am a Florida Gator fan. He is a Georgia Bulldog fan. I live in Florida. He lives in Georgia. So obviously, even though we're co-hosts of not one but 2 sports podcasts and really good friends outside of doing the podcast, we are bitter rivals when it comes to college football, naturally, with the 2 teams that we support. So when Noah got the chance to give me a form of punishment for losing the playoff version of our quick picks that we do here in review and preview, I knew immediately it was going to be something Georgia related. And the punishment that Noah gave me for this one was to come up with a list of 15 reasons that I was jealous of Georgia football or Georgia in general, whatever, the university. I got to say, this is probably one of the hardest things because whenever you're trying to come up with like a valid list of reasons for something that you despise, it's not exactly like easy or enjoyable work.
But here's the thing. Even though you don't like to advertise it, it's pretty safe to say that there's some truth to it.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah. I despise the Patriots. That doesn't mean I'm not jealous of them.
Right. Yeah, all bias aside, it's not like I had to come up with a bunch of random BS reasons. Like there's definitely truth in the list. There's things where I go, okay, all bias aside, all hate for this team aside, it does suck that they have this and we don't, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I guess I'll kick it off here. I got a good old list here. No, I had to write things down, take notes, all that, because there's no way I could have remembered all this off the top of my head, nor do I want to. I want to get this moment behind me and all these thoughts out of my head as soon as possible. But we'll start it off here. My very first reason for being jealous of Georgia football / the University of Georgia, obviously they have won not one, but the last 2 national titles back to back. So for 2 reasons, actually. One, my favorite thing to do to Noah was to make the 1980 meme before they won either one of those 2, because that is the last time that they had won anything. And secondly, the other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is the fact that even Urban Meyer He was able to win 2 and 3, but he wasn't even able to win back-to-back titles here in Florida. So a couple of reasons that kind of pair up with that one. Number two, and this is a guy that we just talked a lot about, Nick, Stetson Bennett, but a different reason. His entire college career, he was able to go through not as just a college student, but as a very, at least in the latter part of his tenure, a very popular, like polarizing sports figure. And he did it all with only having a flip phone. That is one of the most interesting, like out of left field things I ever saw about this dude following college football these past few years really closely. Um, I think that, not to get off on a tangent, but we're also used to like having smartphones and, all these devices where the world's kind of at our fingertips. And here's this dude leading his team to back-to-back national titles, and he's walking around with a flip phone in his pocket. Number three, the fact that their mascot is a dog, hence the Georgia Bulldogs, it allows their fan base to be able to walk around, go to games, and physically bark at opposing fan bases as like a form of, I guess, intriguing kind of that could go. Number four, following it up kind of hand in hand, UGA's real mascot, Uga, the bulldog, that I'm sure anybody who's followed college football has seen at one point or another, actually was named by Sports Illustrated as the #1 live mascot ever. Unfortunately, the Gators of the Florida Gator Albert mascot, he has not won that award ever. Number five, it really pains me to say this because I don't want to give this credit to any rival team. But in my opinion, and also a lot of people's opinions, UGA is most likely claimed the phrase of RBU, running back U, because their legacy of running backs is unreal. You have guys like Frank Sinwich, who was, fun history fact, the first SEC player to win the Heisman Trophy, all the way up to guys like Herschel Walker, Garrison Hurst, Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel. List goes on and on and on with all the great running backs that they've had over the years there at UGA. Number six, the Spike Squad, which, for if anybody doesn't know what that is, basically there's a group of like super passionate, avid UGA fans that, much like the Oakland Raiders of the NFL, wear shoulder pads with these big, huge spikes on them and like grimacing face paint rather. It's just a really cool thing that obviously Florida doesn't have anything like that. I mean, we have passionate, rowdy fans, but we don't get to wear like the spiked shoulder pads to games or anything cool like that. Number seven reason why, UGA's recent dominance in what's coined as the cocktail party, the yearly annual rivalry game that's held in Jacksonville. As we all know, UGA has been on a tear ever since Kirby Smart has been there. Florida, very up and down, a lot more down years than good years, and they have won 5 of the last 6 matchups. So obviously I'm not able to talk a whole lot of trash in the department of head-to-head wins, even though we do still hold the all-time series lead. Number 8 reason, unlike Florida in recent years, they really haven't had like a struggling quarterback situation. Obviously, they haven't had like guys going out there and winning the Heisman or lighting the world on absolute fire, but they've had really like solid, good quarterback play that has in no way held their team back from competing, which is quite the opposite. Florida has had a lot of good years over the last decade defensively, but just outside of Kyle Trask, just really, really, and Anthony Richardson in moments this season, just really, really bad up and down run-of-the-mill quarterback play that's really held our teams back. Even the year that Kyle Trask was really good, the defense was absolutely abysmal and probably kept us out of the college football playoffs, if I'm being honest with you guys. Number 9, very much like the last reason, but switching it over to head coaches. Really, really stable in that department. Obviously, Kirby Smart, he's starting to garner attention as the #1 college football coach right now. They're kind of, swaying that momentum away from Nick Saban, not saying he's the best ever. That's obviously still Nick Saban, but he's starting to take the title of, okay, this guy might just be the number one guy right now in all of college football, whereas we've had an absolute coaching carousel. As Noah likes to mention, his favorite meme against me is old Sullen Mullen, as he'd called Dan Mullen. But obviously, there's a lot of other guys you can throw in there, like Charlie Strong, Ron Zook, Muschamp, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, another reason that kind of ties into that is the fact that Kirby Smart actually has been able to defeat Nick Saban. We really haven't played them too much in recent years, but the few times we've had, they've kind of beaten the snot out of us. I remember Tim Tebow's senior season, they came in there and beat the brakes off of us. Tim Tebow was on the sidelines crying. They just barely beat us that year. We were really good recently with Kyle Trask. So Kirby Smart, unlike a lot of college football coaches, not even just my Florida Gators, can say that he's got the Kirby, or rather the Nick Saban monkey off his back and can beat him, and probably feels really confident now every time that they match up. Number 11, I guess that moves us up to now. One thing, and if anybody's ever been to college football games in here, the bigger stadiums in college football have the best atmospheres. Absolutely insane. I love going to big time games in the Swamp. But with that said, Sanford Stadium actually has a bigger stadium capacity wise. It's been renovated much more recently, much more nicer in terms of amenities, like physically how the stadium is. And unfortunately, Ben Hill Griffin Stadium is awesome to go to, but it is very old and not really dirty, but outdated, I would say is the best way to describe it. So definitely jealous in the home stadium department to those regards. Moving on to, I believe we're up to number 13 now. UGA now has more national titles in college football than Florida does. Sitting at 4, we are at 3. So now they have bragging rights in recent history, head-to-head matchups. Now they've got bragging rights in total national championships for football. And as Noah will remind all of us in here, all those basket weaving and pottery championships that Florida has won do not count when we discuss national championships. Number 14, UGA's red and black alternate jerseys, which are the ones kind of with the dog collar around the necks, are honestly really cool. I can't lie. I hate Georgia with a passion, but those jerseys are really like badass, intimidating. Like I wish we had something like that, honestly. So definitely jealous of that jersey. And then lastly, number 15, moving into the NFL side of things, UGA does have a quarterback who actually has won a Super Bowl and not just appeared in one in recent history with Matthew Stafford. And that does up a very painful list that I am incredibly glad to get behind me, Nick. Hopefully I don't have to say any more good things about the Georgia Bulldogs for a long time.
All right. Well, I guess, like I said, some of that was probably true, even if you didn't want to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the
even though-
jersey part. Like I said, I
Right.
do love those jerseys.
So I will talk a little bit about, I mean, the thing is, this punishment is way worse for you than it is for me because, like, I don't really care about Georgia football or Stetson Bennett very
Right.
much.
Whereas I hate them with a burning passion.
You hate them. I don't hate Georgia. I have nothing against them. It's not exactly. There are sports teams in the state of Georgia that I hate a lot more than than the Georgia Bulldogs. Okay, so there's been. So I also have to recap the worst bets I made against Georgia throughout the season. There's 4 that come to mind. The first one was in early September when I bet South Carolina to cover a 21, I think it was a 21-point spread against Georgia. Georgia blew them out. They blew them out almost as bad as almost as bad as they blew out Oregon. South Carolina 48-7. That was it. 48-7. That's almost as bad as 49-3. So I had them plus, I think it was 3 touchdowns. That was pretty bad. Pretty bad. Everybody forgets about it because it didn't matter that much. But actually, in hindsight, that win for Georgia looks even a little bit better because South Carolina turned out to be.
They went on that run at the end of the year.
Yeah, at least at the end of the year. The next one was Georgia. I took Tennessee to cover 10 points, I think it was, against Tennessee to cover against Georgia. I think it was I think it might have been like 10 points or something, or maybe it was 8 points. It was roughly around that area.
They were actually higher ranked headed into that game. I think they were number 1.
Yeah,
and Georgia was 2.
Yes. Tennessee was higher ranked for one obvious reason, because they beat Bama. Yes, Tennessee was ranked number 1 going into that game, even though Georgia were like 10-point favorites or something like that. I was very confident. Not only did I take Tennessee, I was very confident in Tennessee. And I will say they totally dominated. Dominated.
I had Georgia winning that game, but I felt that Tennessee would be able to challenge them with how good their offense was.
And honestly, the game was even less close than the score suggested.
Yeah, Tennessee didn't even score till right towards the very end of the game.
Yeah, so that game was not close. Yeah, a bigger blowout than the score suggested. The next one is Georgia. I bet LSU to cover against Georgia in the SEC championship game. It was like a 2-touchdown spread. Not only that was the game that Jaden Daniels didn't finish. It was it was he got injured in that game.
He came into the game not 100% and ended up getting
he wasn't 100%
re-injuring himself.
In hindsight, that was really stupid because LSU had already, their season went kind of like this. They already collapsed against Texas A&M. Georgia was on the rise, although they didn't look that great against Kentucky. But Kentucky's a pretty tough team. That was a pretty bad one. I should have known better. That was like, it's not even just that I was wrong in hindsight. I think because just because I'm wrong in hindsight doesn't mean it didn't make sense at the time. Like my Georgia Tennessee bet, I think it made sense why I thought it. In hindsight, I think it was really stupid that I actually thought that. Not just because I lost, but because I don't know why I thought that. That was really dumb. Especially when, the game before, I bet on LSU to beat Texas A&M. I would have won like $170 something if LSU had just beaten Texas A&M, who had the worst year in probably my lifetime, or certainly up there. And obviously, the worst of the worst was the national championship game. TC, I bet on Georgia. I literally said on this show that Tennessee, that it's probably going to be a 1-score game.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be closer than most people thought, but that blowout was bad.
It was unwatchable. One of the most unwatchable games I've ever seen. That was really bad. But I will say, to be fair, you and Noah were on the show that I said that. And Noah said, I think I agree with that. So I'm not the only one who said that. He didn't really push back and say, no, Georgia's going to blow him out. That didn't happen. Okay, that did not happen on the show, and I have receipts to prove it. And it wasn't that I thought Georgia was going to lose to TCU. Like, if I had thought that, that would still look less bad than saying it's going to be a 1-score game when it was not close. So I think that pretty much does it for our punishment.
Yeah.